All right, so our next intern is Shira. I'm going to save your friend, okay? Is Shira Kalker. Unfortunately, the person she interviewed wasn't able to be here, but so we're going to have her go up by herself. So Shira is studying criminal justice here at the college, and Shira actually lived in Israel for 5 years, where she worked at Yad Vashem and got to interview many Holocaust survivors. So she came to this internship with a very unique perspective because of that. Many people in her family are Holocaust survivors, including her grandmother. So since interviewing survivors isn't a new experience for her, I wanted to try and do something a little bit different. So I asked her to interview Daniel Brooks, who's the founder of 3G NYC, which is a third-generation Holocaust survivor support group. So it's the grandchildren of survivors. And my hope was that she might, in turn, look at her own experience a little bit differently as that of a survivor, which I don't know if when you came into it, you were thinking of yourself like that. So I'd be really curious to hear how it went.
Thanks. Okay, so I actually volunteered at Yad Vashem for numerous years when I was living in Israel. So I do have a lot of experience talking to survivors. I interviewed Daniel Brooks, who founded it started off as a support group, but now they also have an educational aspect to it. They go into public schools or any school that needs to talk about the Holocaust, and they bring in different stories, and they try to focus more on what that specific school's problem is. So, for instance, they go into schools in the city and they have a problem with bullying, so they try to compare how the Holocaust, was against Jews or other people that weren't just like they wanted, and they try to talk about how people don't realize bullying is also something that's a big issue now. So they bring that in a lot. He actually started this group in, I believe it's 2005. He was sitting at a round table discussion with a bunch of other survivors. Well, they weren't survivors, they were third generation descendants. Their grandparents had gone through the Holocaust, and he decided, this is a really good opportunity to start a program, like a group, that would be able to meet and talk about their grandparents so that they're able to preserve their grandparents' story. So most of the people in the group are a lot older than I am, so a lot of their grandparents have already passed away. I'm actually fortunate enough, my grandmother is still alive, and she is a Holocaust survivor. When I was younger, she didn't like to talk about the Holocaust at all. So up until maybe 2 years ago, I did not know her story. There are still parts of her story that I don't know fully. But about 2 years ago, I think my younger brother, needed to do a project, and he asked, I don't know, out of the blue, he just called my grandmother and said, "You have to tell me your story." So he actually got the whole story, and after talking to Daniel Brooks, I decided that I think that I need to go and sit down with my grandmother and record her and understand her story so that this way I could pass it on, since it's very close with me. It's my grandmother. My grandfather also survived the Holocaust, but unfortunately he died 20 years before I was born, so I actually don't know his story. But my father said that he's going to sit down and tell me. So interviewing him, I realized how important it is to actually listen to people's stories, and how important it is to sit down with people and get the full story. Because, for instance, last week in class, my professor asked a question. She said, what was one of the biggest things in history that happened that killed off a big race of people? And people just sat there. No one could think of anything. The Crusades, the Holocaust, nothing. Everyone just sat there. And then the professor looks at me and she says, "Okay, I see you have an answer. What is it?" So I said, "The Holocaust," and people looked at me and asked, "What's the Holocaust?" So after I realized that, I decided that I think that people really need to have more knowledge on the fact that there was a Holocaust. But I personally, I don't understand how people never heard of the Holocaust, but I guess I grew up going to yeshiva, so I learned that as a kid. But this really opened my eyes to see that people need to be more aware. So this program is great. And I told people, I actually sent people to my class, and I told them to come to the Holocaust Museum and check it out and learn about different genocides. So hopefully they're going to come do that.
So did this change the idea of the term survivor for you at all?
It did, because most people think the Holocaust survivor is just a survivor. It's the person who actually went through the experience, and that's true, except that I think that also, the children of those people, or the grandchildren, or even great-grandchildren, they're survivors, because, if my grandmother and my grandfather didn't survive, I would not be able to sit here today and talk to you, because, technically, I also survived, through my grandmother, so, yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. Great.